Danielle and I were working on an arrangement of this song together with Rachel Jason on viola. We were putting together a program to tour works of women composers. As we worked on this song, delving into the music and starting to learn more about Ella, we were very fortunate to meet Tim Ferrin. Tim is a documentary filmmaker in the Chicago area, also a friend to Ella, and he is currently in post-production on what I believe is the first documentary about Ella Jenkins. And Tim introduced us to Gayle Wald, who is a professor at George Washington University, and she has a forthcoming biography about Ella.
Welcome, Gayle and Tim.
Thank you.
Hi.
Yeah, it's wonderful that you're both here, and it's interesting to have two people that are both chronicling the life of Ella Jenkins as a documentary with Tim and then as a book with Gayle. So we just wanted to find out a little bit about how you found yourself doing this. And so, Tim, I know your story starts in a grocery store. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Well, it does. Quite a few years ago now, I was working on another project and I was just gathering like craft service stuff up for a quick lunch and was shooting with a school friend who's also a filmmaker. And I heard a voice behind my shoulder say, "Sir, what did you put in your pocket?" And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm in such a hurry and I accidentally shoplifted something, some condiment. And I turned around, it was my elementary school music teacher, Fred Cook, who was laughing hysterically. I must have had panic on my face. Fred is a wonderful guy in the Chicago area. He was, as I said, my elementary school music teacher, but also a children's musician, and he had his own Red Rover record label and took workshops with Ella and knew her and recorded a tribute record to her when I was school age. Through Fred, I got to meet Ella when I was a little kid, like so many people in the Chicago area. But Fred and I got to talking. He knew I worked in film and documentary work, and he knew I was a big music fan. He said, people talked about doing a doc on Ella for a long time, but nobody's ever gotten it together. And the light bulb kind of went off in my head. And at that point, Ella was in her 80s, about 90. And I just couldn't shake the idea. I'm sure there's an amazing story there, and Ella kind of exists under this radar, but has tremendous recognition, especially around Chicago, but then, as I discovered, far beyond Chicago.
Far beyond.
So that's kind of what sparked it. And then I ran into Ella and her manager, Bernadette Richter, a couple times at the Old Town School of Folk Music within a matter of a week or two. And I thought, okay, this is just the universe pushing it together. So things kind of went from there.
And Gayle, how about you? What was your path to Ella?
It's not as good a story as Tim's story. Not nearly.
We'll see.
I don't have memories of knowing Ella's music when I was a child. It's possible that it's in there somewhere and that I don't remember. When I had my own son, I didn't know about Ella's music. But about 8 years ago, I got an email from a friend who knows my work who said, I've got your next great topic. The reason he thought it was my next great topic is I had written a biography of the gospel musician / rock and roll trailblazer, Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Anyway, he thought that I might be intrigued by Ella's story, by her place in music history. And I said, oh, that's very nice. And I buried it. And then a little while later, kind of like Tim, it stuck with me. And I live in Washington, D.C., so I thought, well, let me go over and see what there is at the Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage, which is the Smithsonian branch that runs the Folklife Festival and also houses what used to be Folkways and is now Smithsonian Folkways Records. I'm an academic. I like poking around in archives. I looked around, and then people there said, really, someone needs to write a biography of Ella. And I thought, well, I've done a biography. I'm never doing that again. It's too exhausting. But I did think I was going to write an academic piece doing some research about Ella, in particular around kind of the history of children's music and the concept of multiculturalism in children's music. I did that. And in the course of that research, someone again from the Smithsonian said to me, Ella's very outgoing. She loves meeting people. You should go meet her. And I thought, well, there's no harm in going to meet her. That would be fun, even though I'm not really interviewing her. Anyway, I met her and I met Bernadette, and it was clear that there was actually a lot more to her story than even the archive suggested. The archive only had a piece of her story, not all of it. And that became very clear. But it was a long time before I realized that I was actually going to be writing a biography, partly because I also had to develop a relationship with Ella and Bernadelle so that there was enough trust that they would entrust me with telling Ella's story. So it took a little while, and here we are. And I said it was too exhausting, and I went and did it again.
I have to say that's a pretty good story.
Next, we'll hear a traditional song called The Cuckoo, which is sung in England, Ireland, Scotland, Canada, and the US. And Ella first heard the song on her radio show in Chicago, sung by a guest artist. And eventually she decided to sing and record the song herself. And here's The Cuckoo.